Alrighty, welcome back. Glad you're still with us. And of course, the show is your wild. Time really flies today. I don't know what is happening, but like we said, this week is a very important week that we all should be mindful about, and that is the global Money Week. So we want to talk about money today, and of course, with a special focus on the saving culture and how it can help in spurring economic development. And of course, to help us with that conversation, we have Mr. Raphael Mingisian Lekolol. I hope I've said it right. Managing Director, Postbank. It's so good to have you this morning. Thank you very much for sparing your time. And of course, we also have Stephen Jenga, who's the Country Director, Kenya, Light for the World International. Asante sana for coming by today as well, so that we can talk about this very important conversation. And this year, there's actually a very important, I would say, concentration, and this is as far as, economical empowerment of young people, and that is those ones living with disabilities, which is very, very important as well. But Mr. Raphael, let me just start with you. Money saving, culture here in the country, and especially amongst young people, there's a lot of conversation about how Kenyan youth have a very poor, savings culture. What would you say? How are we doing? What is the issue? Why are the young people not saving as much?
Thank you, Ini. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today. This morning, just to talk about money. Yeah. And for this year's, the theme for Global Money Week is Plan Your Money, Plan Your Future. Yeah. And this applies to the youth. You've asked a very relevant question, and which has really been top of mind for Kenyans, and coming from His Excellency the President, where he's hinted and talked about the low savings culture. It's been a while that this conversation has not really been on the table, and it's good that it's come really on the table now, and the young people are part of this conversation. When you look at what the President has done with the Hustler Fund and the savings component that is there, which is mandatory, and also which will be available after some time. It's just part of creating that awareness to the youth. It's a culture that's not been very good. When you look at where the world is, as a region first, we are way behind the other countries. We are in our, looking at the GDP versus savings, we are at around 10 to 14%. In the region, the other countries, Uganda, Tanzania, we are almost reaching 20, and the global average is around 23. Yeah. So just looking at those numbers, we are way below where we should be. So can't really apportion blame, maybe because it's us as parents who've not really inculcated a savings culture on our children, and that's why it's important to have this Global Money Week, because this week is usually an annual campaign that raises awareness on the importance of ensuring that young people from an early age are financially, literally aware, and they acquire the knowledge and skills and get that attitude and discipline to save. So this is a time for them to learn how to save. So it's up to us, from the industry, from the banking industry, from the media, just to create this awareness that something needs to be done so that we can plan our money and plan our future.
I like that. All right. Because majority of us growing up, there's that love-hate relationship with money, right? That's traditionally people would say, maybe they did not get the money in the right way, or money is evil, and all those things. So I think we also need to sort of change our perception and mindset really as far as money is concerned. The special emphasis, on economical empowerment of young persons, especially, those ones with disabilities. If I'd want you to speak on this, why is it very important, and what are some of the challenges, affecting specifically persons living with disability, and especially when it comes to either accessing, or even securing jobs as well, because it's a very interesting statistic on your side.
Yes, thank you very much for having me, and I appreciate that this year's Money Week is about not just talking about the savings culture, but also looking into special focus for youth with disabilities. When we're talking about saving, it's important to think about what it is that we are saving. Young people are finding it very, very difficult to survive in this economy, to get a job, and the kind of income they have, they are not able to meet their basic needs, leave alone have something to save. And if you look at our culture and our education system and the way things are changing, we have educated our youth on topics which have been relevant between the 70s and the 80s, and we never prepared them for the time that they live in for the moment.
Okay.
And we are in the right space talking about CBC and revising the kind of topics that we are teaching our youth. And money is one of the topics that was never really talked about. The youth were never taught how to handle money, why you should save, what types of savings are there, should you make investments. Light for the World runs a program that supports youth to be employable and to understand how to sell themselves as a product in the market. And we are looking here at income, because if they are unable to generate an income for themselves, then they are unable to make any savings. And youth with disabilities are more disadvantaged than most. It's 8 times more difficult for a young person with a disability to get a job. And even when they get a job, their chance of growth, their chance of scaling within the business, within the career ladder is diminished. Their counterparts who started the same time with them are getting paid more than them, are getting pay rises, are getting new job opportunities, new job offers, because there is a lot of there is a lot of barriers that are facing the young people with disabilities. But when we start talking about money, there is a long history, and I think it's what we need to start thinking of as a society, that we want to educate our young people with and without disabilities, to be able to understand that the world that they are coming into is going to be different, that the jobs that they are going to start looking for in the next 10-15 years are different from what they are studying, and they need to start thinking of that, so that when it comes to handling money, the right investments to make, the right savings to make, even the retirement plan, it becomes different.
And at that time, and of course, it's something that we need to, keep, what is it called? Upskilling, if that is the word, upskilling. All right, because again, like I said, time changes and things change at the same time. And of course, Stephen mentioned something that others of people talk about, and that is, times are difficult. I can barely, survive. I can barely take care of my daily needs. So, to put aside to prepare for my future, so that when it comes to maneuvering through this difficult, times that we are living in at the moment, but also making sure that our future, sort of looks bright, so that we don't get to that age where we're like, I don't have anything, to sustain me in the future.
What we see nowadays going around is, when you look at the young people, they have this mentality of YOLO.
You only live once.
You only live once. They forget that you also need to live tomorrow. And if you put that into perspective, then you realize that you also need something for tomorrow. And if that gets in our daily discipline, then you'll be able to take care of the tomorrow. There's this saying that if you take care of the pennies, the shillings will take care of themselves. So even during hard times, the little that you're able to save, the pennies that you're able to save, will actually go into shillings tomorrow. And one key thing in savings is discipline. So if you can discipline yourself during hard times, so even during the good times, when you are flush with money and the good times are rolling in, then you should be able to set aside a certain percentage of what you are getting. So the thing is to get that culture, that behavior, that attitude, create that attitude, and just try to live within those means that you're able to live within. Do not be extravagant. And if you have a rule of the thumb and say, I'll be able to save 10% of whatever I get, and you dedicate it and put it aside, then you will be able to have something for tomorrow. And you'll be going along the journey of building a savings culture.
There's usually also this conversation around how much are you supposed to save and why are you saving? Because there's a lot of talk about it's important to save, but what are you saving for, right? And how much is not too much, but too little? Because a lot of people say, I get, this much. It's very little, for me to save 100 shillings or 50 shillings. That's very little. So let me just enjoy the moment. And then when we get a bigger chunk, is when you save. You talked about how important it is for parents, and caregivers and guardians, and even, entities that are responsible, like the banking sector, you said, to, again, be at the forefront of promoting such conversation. So the big question is then, how early, is too early, or not too early, but how early should we start these conversations around saving, and preparing for our future?
At Postbank, we are very deliberate in terms of that conversation, because part of our key mandate, apart from just operating the branches that we have and operating the entities that give those products, one of the key things we are mandated with is that savings training.
Okay.
We go to schools. We try as much as possible to get to the young and tell them about money and what they need to do about savings. It's a culture that needs to start from that very young age, and we are very deliberate about it, because once the young learn about what we need to do, then by the time they are growing old, they will be having that in the back of their mind, that this is how we are supposed to do with our financial, they'd be aware in terms of managing their financial affairs. We've come across old people, and when we talk to them about some of the key products we have on, like savings as you earn, so you're talking to somebody who is around 20, 30, 40, and they are asking, where were you when you were in school? When I used to get this pocket money of 100 shillings. I wish you told me to save 10 shillings.
Save 10 shillings
because now I'll be very far. When you're telling that to somebody who is 30, they're already hardened in their ways, and for them to shift is very difficult. So the idea is to reach out to schools and put universities, just talk to them about financial management and what they need to do about money, and just inculcate that savings culture from that age. We may not have enough resources to do that, but we try as much as possible. So it's never too young to start your child on savings. If you look at Postbank, we used to have those 2 small piggy banks. If you are able to get those small piggy banks, let that child today sacrifice not buying a sweet, not buying an ice cream, and put that 10 bob, 20 bob, 30 bob. You'll be surprised at the end of the month, they'll be having 200, 300, which if you tell them, let's go to the bank, and they put it aside, because we have those products where you as a parent can come in and operate that account for the child. They'll be so happy to see that there's something there for them. And also see the growth, of the little shillings that you save here and there. And we see that a lot with so many, parents now, having that piggy bank, for their children, which is really a good thing. But I'll come back to you in terms of fine. So understanding, so that what am I doing with my savings? Because like I said, a lot of people say save, save, save. But then what are you saving for, and how do you grow your savings at the same time? But let's talk to Stephen. 64% of persons with disabilities are unemployed, right? And then we also have the whole question about vocational skills, and of course this again translates to a 20% higher chance of finding work for persons with disabilities. But at the same time, finding these opportunities for them, and of course this is the whole question about inclusion. How are we doing? What more do we need to do? What are some of the gaps that you have identified?
It's interesting looking at the data, because as it is from the employers, I sit a lot in meetings within the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, and I know what I hear from employers. There is more demand than there is supply for young people with disabilities in the labor market. And there was a study that was done by Site Savers, and they did mention, and it did come out from employers. But then again, we have a big group of young people who are looking for work that are unable to find work. And the question from the youth is, what's the disconnect? This data that you're showing us is wrong, and the reality is that it's not wrong. The reality is that just last week we had a company saying that we are taking on interns, and we need engineers. We need engineers with a disability, and we can't find them. We can't find them because there is a whole exclusion within the academic space. Young people with disabilities not finding an opportunity to learn, to go to school, to get educated, and even those that manage to get to the university, the university is not in a position to train a deaf engineer, for example, or an engineer who has visual impairment, because their entire facilities are not inclusive. So there is a very big issue which is leading to a situation whereby the young people with the disability are feeling left out. Even those that manage to get the skills, they are unable to plunge themselves into the marketplace. We have less than 500 students across the country in all the public and private universities with disabilities. Compare that to the big number of people with the students who do not have a disability, who are also in the same, who are also coming out of the same institutions looking for work. Now, it's interesting when we start talking about then the economic gap that starts growing. We are talking about savings, and I like the theme for the Global Money Week now, and we are talking about young people being in a position to save. But if they cannot get to pivot themselves, if you are a young person who has studied finance or education, but the future is going to be different. The jobs that we have now, 45% of the current jobs that we have now are all going to be redundant in the next 15, 20 years. So the young people who are out of college now need to pivot themselves and to find the new space that belongs to them, and that is the only way that they can add value to the market. And that is what the private sector is looking for. So when on their side they say that we are not finding the right young people to employ, and it's not just for people with disabilities, it's also for youth without a disability. You know, and even those that come in, the private sector, public sector spends quite a lot in terms of training and upskilling them just for them to be functional. If you think about that, that is what the education space should be doing. But then there is still the role of the parent in terms of inculcating the culture of, just like how he has explained it, the culture of saving, the culture of handling money, and when you handle that money, for what purpose is that money for? That is still the elusive picture.
Absolutely. So then, aside from employment, because again, there's a lot of conversation around, we need to think away from employment. Yes, employment is good. There are employers out there, there are entities and, you know, organizations and all those things that are employing people, but at the same time you also need to think beyond employment, right? And of course, so then when it comes to empowering young people and also persons living with the disabilities to also think you know, beyond employment, what would you say, what are some of the areas that we need to start, you know, thinking about?
One of the things that is happening now that is creating a paradigm shift is technology. Technology is revolutionizing things, and if you look at what happened when COVID came and institutions, academic institutions were forced to have online classes. They were never prepared for that, and it took time. And imagine that student with a disability who always struggled going to the morning class because they have to beat traffic, and now they can learn in their home. And not just learn what is taught in their university, but they can also learn from what is taught in a university in the UK or in China. And you find that you can work for you can take an internship for a company in Australia, being in Kenya. I mean, Kenyans are writing and they're doing whole academic programs for universities abroad, for students abroad. We have the talent here. And technology is bringing that paradigm shift in terms of either self-employment or job placement, or even the dynamic around how work is done. Right now we have full-time employment where somebody is working 40 hours a week. In the next 5-10 years things are going to change. The young people that we have now will not want to be employed in a full-time role. They will want 2 days a week, 1 day a week, and then work for 5-6 companies. And that is an advantage to young people with a disability. Because they're flexible, they can be able to channel their talent where they see it's valued the most, and they can be able to create a community of their own, online or offline, that gives them value, that allows them to grow, that allows them to sell themselves. So, and I think this is an opportunity that young people with disabilities can take advantage of, that is going to, you know, give them that competitive edge.
Absolutely. All right, and Mr. Raphael, in terms of, you know, painting a bigger picture, because again, like we said, saving is good, and understanding why you're saving that money for is very important. But at the same time, let's then you know, take that to the you know, economic level here in the country. Me with my little savings, right? How does that contribute you know, to the country's economy?
Thank you. I think it's quite critical for people to know why it's important, not just in it for them, but also for the country. For the country, when we save our own and we have our own resources, then it means we have money for ourselves.
Okay.
I think growing up, I've realized money is very expensive if it's not yours.
True.
It's very expensive. And when you have to borrow money to do something, you have to pay an interest.
Yeah.
And if it's coming from somebody else, then they determine how much interest they will charge, because they just decide, I'm not giving you this much, I'll give you this much.
I mean, you're desperate at that time. It's like whatever interest, fine.
Yes. So it's really critical for us as a country. We save so that we have our own internal resources, because those internal resources are easy to manage and they are not risky. You can imagine if you're borrowing in dollars, and when you look at the papers and where the world is going with the US economy mopping up all the dollars around the world, and you've borrowed in dollars and you have to repay in dollars, and then the dollar rate has shot up, then you'll start feeling the pinch, you as an individual. So you can imagine as a country at that high level where you're borrowing huge amounts for very heavy infrastructure projects. So for us to help the government, we need to save so that the government can utilize our own resources, and that's what the president has been talking about. The housing projects, he wants it to be done using internally generated resources. So for us as Post Bank, the money we people save, our customers bring to us, we normally invest it in government bonds. So this is usually used for national development, and that's basically essential for us as a country to encourage our people to save, so that we're able to get money that is able to generate income for Kenyans, not you as an individual, but also help the government not look far for funding to do its own projects. Once it's like that, then it makes life very easy for everyone. A bit
easier for everyone, yes, because now everybody is talking about economy imepanda, unga imepanda, you know, and all those things. But we can do, you know, the little things that we can do as a people, I mean, to help, you know, a little bit with the same. So then the question is, how then can we have governments and, you know, organizations sort of like create that inclusive economic, you know, environment, and especially for persons living with disabilities and also the young people as well, so that we deal with this whole issue about the economy and the debt ceiling, and you know, it's a lot of things at the same time.
I'm worried as a Kenyan, thinking about what is happening and how it's affecting our young people and how unprepared we are as a country. And I'm worried that history will keep repeating itself. And I'm worried that we are not thinking about what our country will be in the next 30 years, when our young people right now are in their 40s, in their 50s. We are not preparing them well for the future. Those that are already out here looking for work are unable to find work, and they are unable to find themselves contributing to the economy. And because of that, they are not contributing to the growth, and they don't feel part of it. What will keep happening is that the wealth gap will keep widening, because those who are in a position are able to help their children, their young people, to pivot and to be part of the economy. Not so much because of the wealth, but because of the knowledge and the awareness that you can actually learn a new skill and it's needed somewhere. You realize that those who do not have this kind of knowledge and awareness will keep on pushing their children to study courses which are very soon going to be redundant, even before the children, the students,
the labor force.
Even before they join the labor force, what they have studied has already been rendered redundant. Now, I'm happy that we are revising the CBC. And there is a task force that is set up. I'm yet to see what the outcomes of that are, because it's part of the enabling environment. And I like that it's tasking parents more with the education of their children. It's not just the teachers, because for a long time education has been left to the teachers. And the parents have a critical role. But if you think about what the future is going to be, it's going to be different if you think about the way technology is revolutionizing things. We have artificial technology, we have all of this. And the enabling environment that the government should be creating should be helping our youth to harness what is already there and what is existing for them to be able to add value and contribute to the economy.
Absolutely. So we literally have like a minute before we end the conversation. So allow me to take that as your parting shot, if you may, and give you just 30 seconds, or maybe I can give you like 10 seconds to give your parting shot, and then I'll come back to you, Mr. Raphael.
That's fair.
My
parting shot is this. Our parents and the government needs to push this much more to the parents. As much as the government is providing opportunities and the private sector is pushing that young people are provided an opportunity, everybody is facing a hard economic time, including the private sector itself. But there are opportunities, and it's the high time that we pivot, and we need to change. Otherwise, we will keep on being dependent as a country. We will keep on making our generation, the children that are coming up, they will come and inherit the debts that we keep borrowing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I like that. Thank you very much, Stephen. Okay, Mr. Raphael, literally 40, not 45, 30, 20 seconds.
20 seconds.
Yes.
For me, my parting shot is it's never too late to start saving. Okay. It's never too late. Anytime is savings time. They used to say anytime is tea time.
Yes.
Anytime is savings time. Whatever money you get, kindly save. And have a plan for it. Absolutely. Because half the time people do not have a plan. There's something you hinted on. What do you want to do with this money? Yeah. Have a goal. What you want to do. What you're saving for. Yes. I like that. Thank you very much. Mr. Raphael Mingisian Lekolol, Managing Director, Postbank, as well as Stephen Jenga, Country Director, Kenya, Light for the World International. Thank you very much for coming by today on this Global Money Week. To help us really understand how our little savings, which again is not little, because, if we all come together, again, this will much contribute, and this is as far as the economic development is concerned. So no money is too little. 10 shillings, 20 shillings, 30 shillings, it's pretty much important. The point is, make sure that you save a little bit, but also understand why you are saving that money, and the earlier the better for all of us. All right, so thank you so much to both of you for coming by today, and thank you for staying with us until the end of the show. So now I believe you have a better understanding as far as savings, and also going for those opportunities so that you can get extra to save is concerned. So my name is Winnie Lubembe. Have yourselves a lovely day ahead. I'll see you tomorrow morning, same time, same place, right here on Your World. But until then, stay safe, God bless, and remember to get vaccinated if you have not, and also save some money. Okay, goodbye for now.